welcome to finnCap's Driving Ambition web series and podcast. I'm Rajan Datar. Over the next few weeks, I'll be touring the country in an all-electric black cab, visiting an array of leading UK PLC small and medium-sized enterprises, all selected from finnCap's Ambition Nation listed 50. I'll be speaking to CEOs and business leaders to find out what are the key factors that drove their success. What was that company's unique journey? Because this is Ambition Nation. So John, you came to the company in 2010.
Yes.
I think you had a reputation as being a bit of a straight talker. What did you see as your job then in terms of perhaps changing the culture around? Because the company was in a bit of a tailspin at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the company had obviously lost its way, probably lost its a lot of its self-belief, which is key to driving any business forward. That you've got to take the people with you. It had been in outflows for 7 years, and it was losing considerable amount of money on a monthly basis. So it was a question of could we turn the business around, and where we were going to start and do that. I think the two main sort of opportunities there. One was it needed to change probably at a time when the industry needed to change. For too long, asset managers had, if you think that their core function is to provide solutions to the savings industry and to satisfy the long-term savings needs and requirements of the population. For too long, the more established businesses had made a comfortable living by telling clients what they wanted them to buy. And I think not just in the investment world, but as we saw through politics at the time and everything else, there was very much the consumer was telling everybody what they wanted. And sort of from the savings point of view, for too long, the fund management industry had cloaked itself in a sort of a dialogue, sort of highbrow and efficient, but very difficult for people to relate to and understand with. And I think that was very much one of the challenges. So, and I think the other one was it's still very much the core of Liontrust was an excellent sort of foundation. In the early days, obviously we had to peel it back. It had got a bit tired. It had lost some of its confidence, and that confidence needs to be re-engaged internally.
So in a sense, did you simplify it?
I thought it was important to not try and be too clever. I often say that I don't have a crystal ball, I don't have a magic wand, I can't make things happen, and I'm not looking to do things in a sort of different way. How do we get an edge? What do we do? It's very much on having a clear focus. We refer to it a lot in the business as, the relentless pursuit of the basics. To make sure that if we do our day job, day in, day out, to the best of our ability, that will give us an edge over everybody else, because that in itself is probably one of the hardest things to do in any business.
Now, you're not a huge company like some other companies are.
Yeah.
Do you think that gives you an advantage?
I think it definitely does. When you're smaller and you've been successful as we have done, you've definitely got a very, good, environment and a tailwind behind you to drive forward. But I think that that just serves to sort of be able to, the tailwind reinforce the things that you are doing are right, and therefore you've got to keep doing those as best you can. The biggest danger is, often referred to as sort of you get to a position where your business is running successfully and you think everything is going well and you sleepwalk into failure. The business that I and the management team run has to be a business that is a year ahead of where Liontrust is now. To put it another way, anybody can run Liontrust in the next 6 months because we have a good, strong process and focus to what you're doing. But very similar to fund management, it's the stocks that we pick now will produce the returns in the future. So it's very much about looking at how you position yourself, for where the environment's going and where that business you want to take the business, and not to get distracted in that decision-making process.
I mean, what gives you that distinct edge? Because it strikes me that every company would kind of say that, in a sense, when they would say, don't get distracted, stay focused. How is Liontrust different?
Obviously size enables us to communicate very well across the business. You've got to work very hard on messaging, both internally and more, equally as importantly, externally to your client base, and how you get that out there. I think, in a smaller environment that we are, you can create that environment for fund managers to run money the way they want to, not to be driven by a chief investment officer that says, this is the house view, this is what you must adhere to. And then running into all amounts of capital allows you to take opportunities from, an advantage of the inefficiencies that exist in markets.
So that, in a sense, means that you allow your managers to have more independence. You kind of empower them, to use that word. What does that mean about then your leadership style?
I mean, I think leadership is very much one of empowerment. So it's very much a question of how do you balance that skill set, and very much having a framework that you operate in. We monitor that process very carefully. We look for where there's any kind of variance against that, because we often say that whilst performance is not predictable, process is. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking for the outcome, and to get that consistent outcome, you've very much got to stick to what your process dictates.
When it comes to the way you recruit, what do you look for?
First and foremost, it's people fit. It doesn't matter how talented a fund manager you are, how good a fund manager are, your assets and the company's assets go up and down and lift every day. If you don't create the right environment where people get on or collaborate, share that information and have the same view and vision for how you drive the business forward, you'll not succeed. So people fit is, I think, the biggest challenge. It's then finding people that have that, good, strong, consistent, investment process on the fund management side. In the rest of the business, it's finding people that share the same vision, focus on the basics, but also have people that want to, challenge the system and take things on. We don't have to do different things. We don't have to radically change things. But what we have to do is be very much aware of where our end investor is, what are their requirements, what are their needs, and how do we tailor our message for that, and what's the best way to do it, and not to just sort of follow the herd.
Which takes me to the whole point about the kind of management style or leadership style that people have. Some people go by gut instinct, some people see it as a science. Which way do you tend to go with this?
I think it's a combination of many things. I mean, I think, experience, observation from that data, that they all come together. I think, the key is, it's not whether you make a good decision or a bad decision, it's the fact that you make a decision.
Right.
Most businesses fail because people fail to make decisions, i.e. indecision. That's the sort of mother of all evil in a decision.
Yeah.
You've got to face the fact that you're not going to get every decision right. You've got to be mindful that if the decisions you get wrong, you're bold enough or confident enough to change those decisions, and to not stand there and say, no, that's right, we'll prove it's right. If things aren't working out right, you've got to say why and look to change that. And the ones that you do get right, will take you forward.
I'm interested in one aspect of the business that seems to be growing for you, which is the sustainability aspect. Tell me about that. How has that become more central to what you do?
I mean, the sustainable acquisition that we made 2 years ago was something that was probably 2 or 3 years in the making before that. What had been referred to 25 years ago as green, as to ethical, socially responsible investing. It was very much one of these big themes and drivers. You could sense there was a change, and from an asset management point of view, there are two ways that you raise money. One is to have excellent long-term performance, and the other is to position yourself ahead of where an asset allocation shift was. And I very much think that the ESG, the environmental, social, corporate governance, responsibility side of it, was now becoming much more mainstream. It was an embedded part of every risk-reward decision that was being made by fund managers. And if the way that the new millennials, are growing up and going forward, and it's now very much about we invest the money that allows the economy to function. What people are saying to you is that we want you to invest that money in a sustainable and responsible way, and you see numerous examples on that from climate change process, and going on, and how people feel about that. And I think as investment managers, we have a responsibility to embed that across the whole of our business.
But I mean, in some sense, that is obviously a lovely ideal. Sometimes, I presume, there is a conflict because it may not actually reap rewards, and your investors will actually could find themselves losing money if they're not careful. I mean, how do you make sure that it's well protected?
I think that's, a lot of it's a bit of a myth that people in the past was, well, if you invest in, sustainability side, but surely it's oils or tobaccos and everything, which are the stocks that are going to go up. And I think, we've seen that environment change now. I very much think it's, the way we use scarce resources on the planet, the way we look for, to improve efficiencies in health, or, the way we look at climate change and energy conservation. I think these are just really the big investment drivers that are going forward, and very much at the forefront of where market returns will be, not just from a sustainable demand sort of.
Now, the company was already a PLC when you arrived, and you'd already had experience of that world. Tell me how that was important and how it was different to, say, you taking it into a listing.
I think the position that Liontrust was in at the time was that assets had fallen back to $1 billion. It had been in outflows for 7 years and was losing money. So therefore, and I think it lost confidence and needed to learn how to reconnect and engage with the clients. I think if the business hadn't been listed, that sort of transparency, corporate governance bar hurdle would have been much harder for us to achieve.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, I would say that when I joined, I was lucky in terms of the dust had settled. It may not have settled in in a good place, but a little of that headlines were there, and it wasn't as if the spotlight was on Liontrust. People had sort of moved away and just said, "What's going to happen?" So it very much created an opportunity for us, to take the business forward. Obviously, as we began to turn the business around and had positive information coming forward, that what had been, public statements that had been negatively received were now being positively received, even be minor movements forward. And one of the key things though always is not to get carried away with any of those things. Analysts are at best a fickle band, but they admire and respect you for truthfulness and honesty through that period. So you have to call it as it is and how you see it moving forward. So I think that in itself brings an awful lot of very good business discipline into a business. If you're having to make these statements on a quarterly basis, you're having to run the business and look back to say, what have I said, what are we doing, where's that consistency? So you're always testing your message for the business.
So you embrace the scrutiny.
Yep.
Yep. You think it's a good thing for you? Yeah.
I think it is a good thing, and you've got to be very clear about what your strategy is and your focus is, and use it as an opportunity to move forward, and be bold enough not to say, what do people want to hear? This is the message we want to give out. So I see it as a positive. It obviously provides liquidity and a currency as well for a smaller business, and we've taken advantage of that where in the acquisitions we've made. We've issued new shares for an exchange for businesses. So that's given us a currency to be able to be competitive in this marketplace.
So let's talk about your strategy when it comes to R&D and innovation.
I think with our R&D, what I would call either it's product development or product management. It's not always about what's a new thing. It's about what are the products you've got suitable, and then the other side is it's sort of distribution channels and it's to open up. There are an awful lot of opportunities. There are lots of different markets you could go into. I think it's very easy to get distracted by these.
Because the sweet shop is full of stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of things that distract you.
Yeah.
It's about bandwidth. There's a great opportunity there, but can we deliver successfully in that marketplace? It may be something we have to come back to at a later date. You don't want to lose the focus and the success by overstretching the resource that's in there. So that's why you've got to do that research, that development of talent, internally.
Because when you first came as well, there were two teams, I think, that Credit and Global, that you basically shared for a while. Now you possibly have the opportunity to expand again. And is that how do you approach that this time? Do you feel you're in a far better position to do that now?
We've got a very good, platform on which to build. We've taken the business from $1 billion to 14 billion assets under management. We've created a very strong brand, an excellent distribution franchise, and good core investment teams. We're not, I'm not there looking at where are the gaps in the business. What can I fill? Because I often. That bandwidth is important. It's all about what can we deliver successfully.
Has there been one key decision during your career that you think, yep, that was a significant game changer? What I decided then was really vital.
I think one thing is a bit of it has to be humility. I think to hear, everybody has views. Your views are not always right. I think you learn as much from the way people get things wrong as the way people get things right. And to listen to people. Communication is key to everything and to success. And I think the more you learn to listen to what people have said, sure, at the end of the day, you're the person that's got to make the decision. But you've got to take those people on that journey with you.